Hello gorgeous besties, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Rachel and welcome to Bookmas Day 3. In today's video I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of November. I read 9 books this month and I'm excited to talk about them. I definitely have like a new all-time fave that has been consuming me ever since I read it, and I'm really excited to talk about that book. And also I had a pretty good reading month, so let's just get straight into it and talk about the 9 books that I read in November. Alright, so the first book that I read in the month of November was A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This is the finale of the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, which is a YA fantasy romance, and I was highly anticipating this book. I feel like so many of us were. And actually what is very funny is right before this video I ended up changing my rating for this book on Goodreads. I did write a little blurb about why I changed my rating, but I ended up giving this book a 3-star rating. If you saw my vlog where I read this book, I really enjoyed this book. I had a great time reading it and I gave it 4 stars, but I did have criticisms. Those criticisms are, number one of the main characters, Jax, was not as present in the book, or just wasn't as present as I would have liked him in the book. There was a big focus on another character named Apollo that I felt kind of did a disservice to Jax and Eva's story. I also felt like the ending wrapped up very quickly after all the turmoil that we went through with Eva and Jax throughout the trilogy. It just didn't feel like a very satisfying ending, and there were also storylines of other characters that I feel like weren't even touched on, and who knows, maybe Stephanie Garber is leaving those storylines open for future books, but I just felt a little bit overall unsatisfied with this book. And because of all of those feelings that I had initially when I read the book, and then over the last few weeks just kind of sitting with this, that is what made me lower my rating. I still thoroughly enjoyed my reading experience. I still love Stephanie Garber's writing, and Eva and Jax are fantastic characters, but this was a letdown overall, especially after The Ballad of Never After. That is the second book in the series, and that is my favorite in the series. I think it is so good. Really strong 4-star book for me. I was just expecting so much, and we got the least Eva and Jax throughout the entire trilogy, which is definitely not how you want to end a series. So overall, I gave this a 3-star rating. I will pick up anything Stephanie Garber writes in the future, and I still absolutely love this trilogy. 1,000,000 out of 10 recommend, but this was a disappointing ending. The next book that I read in November is Morning Star by Pierce Brown. So this is the 3rd book in the finale of the original Red Rising trilogy, and I had a really great time with this book. Discovering Pierce Brown's books and his writing this year is definitely going to be a highlight for me. I absolutely love the world that he has crafted in Red Rising. Darrow is such a compelling main character. Overall, I really loved the politics in this book, the plot lines, the characters with their banter. It was really well done, and I was very satisfied with this ending. I did give this 4 stars. As much as I love the Red Rising trilogy, I have not given any of these books 5 stars. I don't know what it is. I think the only thing that I can really pinpoint with these books that I'm not crazy about is the pacing in each of the books. It was hit or miss for me. I really loved some parts of Red Rising. They were so action-packed and so fantastic, and then things would slow down, or they would be like way too many action scenes back to back, and I felt like we weren't really seeing a lot of like character development and growth, which are the things that I really love in a book. So this is not a 5-star series for me yet, but I love it so much, and I feel very connected to Darrow, and I'm so excited to read the future books in 2024. This was definitely a really great ending. I was very emotional, and I just love Pierce Brown's writing. I think he does a good job of explaining this world, doing very complicated world building, but also including very beautiful prose at times, and that's something I can really appreciate. And he also includes a lot of banter in his dialogue, which is great because the stakes are always high in the Red Rising books, and I definitely appreciate some of that to kind of balance things out. So this was very good, 4 stars, and I'm excited to see what else I think of the future Red Rising books. Next up, we have the book that consumes my every waking thought, and that is Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. This book is everything. This is a perfect book. This is like, I have no words. I have no words, and I have 1,000,000 words, and this was such a satisfying finale. It was so well done, you guys. This was such a good finale. It gave me every single thing I want, and quite a few things that I didn't want, but I needed because I had a good cry while I was reading them. What can I say about this finale? I did do like a whole vlog reading this book and then also the 2 previous books I just talked about. So if you want to see more in-depth thoughts, absolutely go watch that vlog. If you want to see me cry a little bit in some B-roll, you can also find that in that vlog as well. But I adore the Greenbone Saga. It is a top 5, if not, you know, top 4, top 3 fantasy series for me. It is so well crafted. It is so well thought out. You can see in the beginning of Jade City these little plot lines that Fonda Lee is creating, and seeing them come to fruition in Jade Legacy and also in Jade War, the second book, so satisfying. She is a genius, and while also creating just such compelling plot lines, she has these amazing characters that just jump off the page. Hilo is like an all-time favorite character for me, and honestly all of them, and Shay, and like cannot with these characters. They mean the world to me. I loved how real they felt. I loved how busy and fast-paced this book felt, and I was just along for the ride with these characters while we're experiencing very intense situations, whether that is with the clan drama happening, the clan politics, or just within their own lives, within their own personal lives, dealing with death, dealing with self-doubt, dealing with relationships, whether that's familial or romantic. Everything was so good. It's like so hard to talk about this series because I don't think I have the words to accurately portray how just magnificent I think this series is. It is so much bigger than me. It is such an amazing and intricate world, but I truly cannot say a single bad thing about this entire trilogy. Every single character was well done. Every single heartbreak, while it was terrible, was so well crafted, and I think happened when it needed to happen. And I think that Fonda Lee is also able to work in this amazing urban fantasy, fantastical world. She's also able to draw parallels to our world and our society and kind of make some commentary on society. And I just like, she's doing everything. She is doing everything in this book. And I genuinely like, I don't know. I'm overwhelmed with my love for this book. It will stick with me forever. I am never gonna shut up about this series, and I don't even feel like what I just said is even up to the level of how fantastic this series is. This is one of these, like, I will hear no critique of this series. Like, I just think it's perfection. Fonda Lee is everything. The series is everything, and we're gonna move on now. Okay, so switching gears here, I did a reread of Fourth Wing in anticipation for Iron Flame coming out, and I thoroughly enjoyed my reread, you guys. When I read this book for the first time, right when it came out, I consumed it in like 2 days. I gave it 5 stars. I had so much fun. I was like reeling from the ending, and I was like, wow, what a fun experience. But I did want to reread it before Iron Flame came out, just because I did have such a like whirlwind, inhaled the book in 2 days type of experience. And I was a little nervous. I was like, am I gonna like this as much? Am I gonna think that this is a 5 star still? And I do. I really, really loved this book. I had so much fun with it. I really like the romance. I really love the dragons are just so fantastic. And I had a lot of fun with the plot. I had a really good time with it. By the way, I have not picked up Iron Flame yet. I ended up getting spoiled when the book came out for a few things, total like accident. I was not seeking them out, but Goodreads and Instagram is not a safe place when it comes to new releases. So unfortunately I got spoiled for a few things, and I don't know, it just put me in a weird headspace where I was like, I don't want to pick up the book right now, knowing that I've just been spoiled for a few things. So I am going to read Iron Flame. I just don't know when. Maybe I'll read it this month. Maybe I'll read it in January. I definitely still want to read it and continue on and see what I think of it. I don't know. I just got spoiled, and then I was like, I don't know. It kind of took some of that anticipation out of me, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna give it some time and I will pick it up and I will let you guys know what I think when I do read it. All right, let's stay on the theme of reflective books. I read City of Fallen Angels, which is the 4th book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I loved it. You guys, I did not think that I was gonna like this. I really didn't, but truly the first 3 books in the Mortal Instruments series and this book, hopefully the next 2 books, the second half of the Mortal Instruments series, it feels different. We're starting new plot lines here. We have a new villain, we have new issues, new conflicts. I am here for all of it. It is so much fun. That's truly what I can say. Look, if there's a YA fantasy where I can just fully escape and have a good time in, I'm there. I'm gonna give it a high rating, and that's why I gave this 4 stars. I genuinely loved my experience with this, and I read this book in 1 sitting, which I did not plan to. Also, I think that was helped by Chuck Bass being the narrator for this audiobook, which is very fun. I think he also narrated one of the Mortal Instruments books. By the way, I know his name is not Chuck Bass, it's Ed Westwick, but he is Chuck Bass forever in my mind. So Chuck Bass does narrate these audiobooks, which is very fun. But I had a really, really great time, and I'm so excited to read the rest of the Mortal Instruments series and then continue on with Shadowhunters in 2024. I really want to get to the Last Hours trilogy, so that's my goal in 2024. We will see if that happens, but I'm just so happy that as I've continued on with the Mortal Instruments series, I feel like each book is getting better and better. The next book that I read in November is Bound and Barbed by Samantha R. Goode. This is a new adult fantasy romance. This book follows our main character, and her name is Eveline. Eveline is a human girl living in a world of vampires and fae and all these different types of mythical creatures, but when her father is killed, she has to go live with her aunt and uncle, who basically, as soon as they get custody of her, immediately want to marry her off for political gain. But Eveline does not want to get married to the person that her aunt and uncle want her to get married to because he is this terrible man, so she tries to prepare herself for an escape, and she ends up running into her fated mate. What she does not know is her fated mate is one of the vampires, and she has been told her whole life that they are very dangerous, but we have good vampires vampires and bad vampires, much like we do in Twilight. And her mate is a good vampire, but she still is very distrusting of him. The two of them do form kind of a reluctant friendship though, because Eveline sees that the love interest, Maddox, could help her protect herself and learn how to fight, learn how to wield a sword better, which will only aid her in her hopeful escape of getting away from this arranged marriage. A lot more gets revealed in the story between them, and there's lots of world building and, as I said, vampires, political intrigue. It was a very, very fun book. I give this book 3.5 stars. I did enjoy myself, but there are a couple things about it that I did not like obsess over. Number one, because Eveline and Maddox are fated mates. When Maddox finds out that Eveline is his mate, he is so excited. He's like, oh my god, I could marry her right now. She is perfect. She is my mate. This is so fantastic. And so we don't really have any like relationship progression on his side, like within him. Now, Eveline does not know that they are mates for most of the book, and from her side of things, we do get to see relationship development. We do get to see this kind of flirtatious friendship begin, and it is satisfying on that end, but then when we get in Maddox's POV, he's like, I love her so much, and I'm like, no, you can't love her yet. I want enemies to lovers, but that is not what this book is. There's definitely a pretty quick friendship that forms between them, and then Maddox is just so down for Eveline. So that was something that I was a little bit disappointed by. It's just not my favorite like romantic dynamic. But I will say, I did enjoy getting to see them together because the author does take the time to have them get to know each other and we see them through a lot of different scenes. So I did enjoy that. The other thing I did not like about this book is our main character Eveline does something so stupid at the end of this book. So stupid. I could see her doing it and I was like, don't do this. Please don't do this to me. And she did. And it is going to further the plot into book 2. Like, it sets up all of book 2, but it is born out of her stupidity, which is never good. So I didn't really love that. You know, not a perfect book, but I still did have fun, and I am gonna read the next book in the series, and I hope that I like it a little bit more than this. The next book that I'm gonna talk about in my November wrap-up is a book that everyone is loving, and I did not, and I am very sad about that, and that is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is a YA fantasy romance. It gives me early Throne of Glass, Hunger Games, Red Queen vibes. Our main character, Payton, lives in a world where not having magic is a big no-no. It'll get you exiled or executed. Payton has learned her entire life to hide the fact that she does not have magic and kind of trick people into thinking that she has a little bit of it. Payton ends up getting pulled into these trials put on by the king, very similar to the Hunger Games trials. And in that process, she meets Kai, who is the son of the king. He's known as the Enforcer, and his job is to hunt down anyone who does not have magic. He's not aware that Payton doesn't have magic, but he is aware that she is quite hot. So the two of them have this little bantery, cute little romance and have to compete in the trials together, and things take off from there. And while I did enjoy the beginning of this book, I liked the setup, I was excited about how things were gonna go, I was overall left very, very dissatisfied by the way that things progressed. Number one, the romance. In my opinion, there was zero romance progression or development. Kai was so into Payton, and every single line out of his mouth was a one-liner, was a flirtatious little banter moment, and he just felt so one note and so flat. He felt like a caricature of just some random love interest in a fantasy romance novel. When the book started, I was excited that we had his POV because we kind of got to know him and his thoughts on being in the kingdom and being in the Enforcer and what it's like to be the son of the king, and I was like, ooh yes, I'm liking this. We're gonna have a little bit more three-dimensional love interest here. But then as soon as Payton got to the castle and was around him full time, I thought that he was so boring. All he did was flirt with her, and I just felt like there was no development between the two of them. I felt like there was nothing to work for, nothing to be excited about. It was just very, very predictable, and I just did not like it. I also found the world building to be very, very surface level, and I just have a lot of questions, which admittedly those questions will probably get answered in future books, but I still just don't understand why the trials happen. I don't understand why Payton was just like so okay with being forced into the trials. I also was expecting kind of a big conflict in the trials, was that Payton doesn't have magic. Like, that's a big problem because the set of trials is for people with magic and no one knows that she doesn't have any. But I felt like that did not really cause too many issues for her, and I'm kind of like, well, then what's the point? I just didn't really love anything about this book, unfortunately. I will say though, the ending was really good, and I am contemplating picking up book 2 just because I want to see what happens with that ending. I liked the ending. I was thoroughly entertained by it. Throughout the entire book, I was kind of like, ugh, okay, like I'm bored. This is just not good. I don't like the romance. I don't like the world building. I just there's nothing working for me. Then the ending happened and I was like, fair enough, Lauren Roberts. I am intrigued. So there is a potential for me to pick up book 2 whenever it comes out, and I am happy to be proven wrong and that this series will turn into just a more entertaining overall series. But I did think that Powerless, this first book in the this trilogy is very weak, and I'm hoping for something more in future books. Okay, so next up I have The Frontrunner by Elsie Silver. This is the third book in the Gold Rush Ranch series. It is very similar to the Chestnut Springs series. It has some connections to it as well. It mainly follows people in like the horse racing industry. We have some jockeys, we have some horse trainers, we have a horse vet, and this is Stefan and Mira's story. So Mira is a veterinarian, and she is this very like cynical, dry character, which I was really excited to read about that. Stefan is kind of like the villain in the first two books, which is very exciting. I was excited for kind of an anti-hero romance hero, and the two of them end up going on a few dates after Stefan has kind of been jokingly asking Mira out, but she really needs a favor from him one day, and he's like, all right, fine, I'll do that favor for you if you go out on a date with me. All of this kind of buildup of this joking about dating has happened off page, but we learn that this has always kind of been a thing between them, and she agrees to go out on a date with him, thinking that, oh, he's just messing around, whatever. But when we're in Stefan's POV, he is very excited about going on dates with her, and they also do a little bit of like fake dating as well, because Mira needs to go visit her family, and she needs a boyfriend because she doesn't want her whole family hounding her about being single. And you know, we just kind of watch their romance blossom from there. I was very, very disappointed by this book. I gave this 2 stars. I love Elsie Silver. I love all of Elsie Silver's books. I am just gutted to be giving this book 2 stars, but I did find this to be the weakest book by her. And honestly, it didn't even really feel like Elsie Silver, which was like what attracted me to the story in the beginning, because these characters are very different from the type of characters that Elsie usually writes. But I was excited about that. I was excited for kind of an edgier, drier, cynical female main character. I was excited for this villainous romance hero, and I felt that these characters fell a little bit flat, and I also felt that their dynamic was kind of boring. As I said, a lot of these kind of like teasing, maybe we'll go out on a date, I don't know, that happened off page. So then we kind of, as the reader, are put in the middle of this friendship that they have, and then at the beginning of the book, they start going out on these dates, and it just feels like we missed out on a lot of that development, and overall, that storyline just doesn't excite me very much. And then my biggest issue with this book, because overall I was kind of bored and I was like, you know, this isn't going to be a hit, whatever. But then the third act breakup happened, and the third act breakup contains a trope that is my least favorite of all time. And that is the trope of, it's kind of like miscommunication and omitting, and it's where one character knows something about the other character and they need to tell them, but they just can't find the right time to do it. And I'm sorry, but I hate that trope. I genuinely just think that that trope it's the worst. I don't know why I hate it so much, but I do. Miscommunication, I just can't do it, and I think that is the worst form of miscommunication, that these two grown adults can't just like talk to each other. And if you know something about this person that you have such strong feelings for, that you're spending all your time with, and you can't take 2 seconds to go like, hey, I need to tell you this, it's never gonna be a win for me. I don't like it. I don't like reading about it in romance books, and it really did not work for me. So I give this book 2 stars, and I'm very sad about it because I love Elsie Silver, and I still do. And this just wasn't a hit for me. I do have one more book in the series, which is The False Start, and I am going to read it so that I can say that I've read the entire series. But yeah, I was very disappointed by this. Also, I read the second book in the series, the one that came before this, and I gave that 4 stars. It was really, really good. I really liked it. So I definitely had higher hopes, but they were squashed by the miscommunication trope, unfortunately. All right, and the very last book that I'm going to talk about, a part of my November wrap up, is Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. You guys know the drill. This is my favorite series of all time. Empire of Storms is one of my favorite books of all time. I think it's one of the strongest books in the series, and it's just super gratifying. I think we see a lot of plot lines that have been building the entire series play out really well in this book. I also think that this book is one of the most significant for the relationships in this series. You see a lot of that development and that growth, and I think a lot of relationships get cemented in this book, which is very fun. So definitely, like, I don't consider the Throne of Glass series a fantasy romance. I think it's a fantasy series with romance subplots. I would say that this book has one of the heaviest romance subplots, which we love, of course. There's so much happening in this book. I am never bored for a moment, and I think it's just one of the strongest books in the series. Also one of the most emotionally painful books that Sarah has ever written, I think. So that was fun. Definitely cried multiple times, but I am really, really happy that I read this. I now need to pick up Tower of Dawn, which tends to be a chore for me, but then I'll get to Kingdom of Ash. I am excited that I'm nearing the end of my Throne of Glass reread, just because it's always, you know, fun to finish out the series, and Kingdom of Ash is just like such a great finale. So this was really great and a 5-star read for me. All right, friends, so that's gonna be it for my November wrap up. I would love to hear down in the comments what was the best book that you read in November, and if you wanted to leave an emoji to let me know that you made it to this point in the video, go ahead and leave the dragon emoji. Please make sure that you're following me on Instagram and Goodreads. They are always linked down below. I really appreciate that you watched this video. I hope that you're having a fantastic day. I love you all so much, and I will catch you guys in the next one.